Have you get that new season buzz, everyone? These two certainly do, because it's the start of the new season for me, guys. I know some people wait until August and all of that stuff, or maybe the first game of pre-season, but the day of the fixtures coming out is the big day for me, and that's today. We now know our first 33 fixtures of next season's Premiership campaign. And they're very exciting, aren't they, guys? They're very, very exciting. Ryan, I can tell you're absolutely buzzing. Maybe not quite as buzzing as me, but you're up for it.
38 days until the first game of the season against Kilmarnock at home. A difficult first game as well. You know, it's not the easiest start to the Premiership season, but at the end, you've got to play all these teams eventually. You know, in the first 5 games, you're playing Hearts, Hibs and Rangers. So, you know, it's a difficult schedule, but at the same time, these teams are there. You've got to beat them. You've got to beat them in order to be the best in the league. I'm just looking forward to it all getting started. Looking forward to the Champions League getting started too. I just want the real football back here, which is basically what I'm trying to say. I'm loving the international football, but at the same time, I just want Celtic back. That's my main focus, and I'm hoping that over the next 38 days, the club get well equipped for what is to come next season. It's going to be a long old season, as I've talked about previously. Fighting on 4 fronts. Let's hope that they're equipped to handle all the necessary fixtures that are ahead of them.
Yes, Robert Arbuckle, Hamish looks alive again. Yes, a good night's sleep will do that for you. Joe, thoughts? Or not even thoughts, just are you as buzzing as me?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure. I don't know, you seem particularly excited. No, I'm less buzzing about the 4:30 kickoff on day one. I'm old school, I want a 3 o'clock number. But no, it's great. It's great. I used to always lament the fact that, excuse me, before the coefficient shifted, that Celtic had all those qualifiers to play the Champions League. Principally, it used to annoy me, but equally, the competitive football came a little bit earlier, so it was like pre-season with an edge. So yeah, I mean, the Euros is great to have football during the day, but looking forward to the real thing. And the fact that we've got pre-season so soon as well is quite exciting.
It is. Just on the 4:30 thing, I've seen a few people speaking about that and the fact that Celtic aren't the first team playing. That's nothing new, is it? I mean, years ago, it was the champions kicked off the season, but I can't remember. In fact, maybe last season that was the case. But I think apart from that, it usually is like sometimes the final game of the weekend that the champions play in the opening weekend. I know that's not the case this time. So I think there's a Monday night game in the opening weekend. I think it's Aberdeen and St Johnstone possibly. But the days of the champions being the first team playing, Ryan, are gone. Should that still be the case?
I think that the champions should kick it off, but you know, I don't know if it's to do with logistics, things like that. Certain teams need to play.
Kilmarnock do have a European qualifier, I believe, on the Thursday, so I don't think we could have played them on the Saturday.
Well, that's absolutely fine, and that's merited. But you know, the football purist in me would want the champions to kick off first, you know, get the season going, the flag being unfurled for the new league season, and start as you mean to go on. But it doesn't matter what time Celtic play, they could play it whatever time they wanted, whatever day that they wanted, just as long as they win the games that are ahead of them, then that's the main thing. It's a tasty first fixture. I think Derek McInnes done a great job at Kilmarnock last season in particular. He's got European football to look forward to. How long that'll be, we'll see. We'll see how they do in the qualifiers, but it's a difficult game. It should be a tasty one. It should be a good atmosphere, and yet just looking forward to getting started. It's always exciting looking at the fixtures. It doesn't feel so long away now. The fact that you've got those fixtures in writing and you know what's coming up and what games are on what dates. It's just all very exciting to me. I'm looking forward to this new season. I've enjoyed the break. I've enjoyed the downtime of the Euros. But now I just want it to get churned up again and get started. It's what you're used to, and it's your bread and butter, and I want the bread and butter to be back now.
Yes, I think we all do. I think we've all gone, just over a month since the Scottish Cup final. It's long enough. I think we want Celtic back, and at least some photos from Lennoxtown. We'll hopefully get them very soon. Right, a big thanks to MPH Boilers and Weissman for sponsoring this video. As always, you can check out more from them. Links in the description. Great people. Thanks very much. We've also got an offer, £4 for 4 months of top quality journalism covering the club you love. Reading that right from the bottom. Perfect timing. Ryan, you get anything else to add on that wonderful deal?
Yeah, on today, on the website today, I was writing about Sead Haksabanovic, who left the club yesterday. Officially, we were talking about that yesterday, that it looked as if the move was going to happen soon. I didn't have it in the next hour or so after we left the briefing that was going to be confirmed as Celtic's first departure this summer. Yeah, he goes to Malmo, so I crunched the numbers on StatsBomb, a wee bit of opinion in there as well on why the move didn't work out for him. He was a bit part player in Ange Postecoglou's second season in charge of Celtic. He only played 2 games for Brendan Rodgers, and then he was shipped out to Stoke City before, basically being told, I think it was a couple of months ago, that he had no future at the club. He's now moved to Malmo. He's had a very nomadic career in terms of he doesn't really stay in the same place for too long. Usually it's 1-2 years max, then he's on to his next club. It works for some players, it doesn't work for others. Hopefully it does work out for him. He might make a quick return if Malmo get through in the Champions League qualifiers. He could be one of these players that comes back to Celtic Park very quickly. But all the best. I mean, his future endeavours, basically.
A Malmo player coming back to haunt us in the Champions League. I feel I've heard that before.
As I was saying that, I was like, yeah, that's exactly what happened with Joe Ingeberget, who I remember started at Celtic okay, fizzled out completely, and then came back to haunt them, weirdly enough, against Malmo. I remember that. Was that the game in which Celtic were at home first? And
3-2 it finished.
Yeah,
it was 3-1, and then right at the end, Joe Ingeberget scored, and it changed the whole complexion of the tie completely, as away goals were still a thing at that point, and all of a sudden you're then going to Sweden to a hostile atmosphere at Malmo Stadium, and the rest is history, unfortunately, in that campaign.
Yeah, that was we fell apart. Joe, abiding memory of Sead Haksabanovic?
Probably the early stages. I mean, he seemed like a player that it was tough, because I think just going on the eye test, less the actual kind of raw data behind his play, it felt like he had a really strong work rate. He felt like he was always working for the team and, really keen to make that impact. And for me, it felt like you were kind of waiting to see the best of him, and it just never really came. As you say, Ryan, he was a kind of bit part player last year. I still liked him as a kind of, impact sub to get unsettled defenders, that bit of pace, that bit of strength that he had. But it felt like the writing was on the wall very quickly last season, didn't it? And as it's all panned out, it's definitely been the case.
Would he have played more last season had he stayed at the club, given how our wingers worked out and given how desperate at one stage we were, like, with all due respect, Mikey Johnson, Yang, guys who probably aren't good enough to be first team Celtic players, were playing every week at one stage. If Haksabanovic hadn't have put that daft Instagram post out and stayed at the club, it could have been another world where he did turn into a first team ready player, or was he just not at that level, Ryan?
I just think he was so poorly advised, if he was advised at all, on that Instagram post. Now, I know he went out with a bang as well in terms of his explicit Instagram post to the Celtic supporters. I mean, start, do you mean to go on and finish? As you mean to start, and all of that? But very, very poorly advised, if not advised whatsoever, and he just shot from the hip, basically, as to what he was feeling. I found it very interesting. All the players, or a lot of the players that liked that post, are no longer at the club, or it looks as if they're not going to be at the club. Famously liked that post. Bernabé liked that post. One of them looks as if he's on his way to Genk. The other one's already out on loan to Internacional in Brazil. So, yeah, interesting that. But could he have made an impact? I guess that's... Maybe he could have got game time, but I think the writing was on the wall after that Instagram post. If he wanted to stay so much and fight for his place, he said it was too early for him. He didn't want to leave Celtic. Well, why would you go and make that post saying that you're better off elsewhere, or you're better off being elsewhere, or to a place that values you more? Would you not stay and fight for your place and not be moaning about it on social media? I just think that was really poor from at the time, at a point where Celtic were struggling because they just got put out of the League Cup to Kilmarnock. He was unfortunate that he didn't get a penalty in that game, which I believe was a penalty right at the end. But that was his last impact for Celtic, and then he went out on loan to Stoke City, and he didn't really set the heather alight. He started well at Stoke, and then he fell away, and he was on the bench for a lot of his spell. So yeah, he could have made an impact, but it's one of those ones I guess we'll never know.
I think the fact that James Forrest forced himself into the plans, like, he absolutely deserved his place in the team, but by the manager's admission, by James's own admission, in January, February time, it wasn't looking very likely for James to get that run towards the end of the season. So whether Haksabanovic would have been, ahead of the queue, had he been there with his head down, working hard at training, there's a good chance, isn't there? I think the same probably applies to Mikey Johnson if he was still here. I think you're looking to those younger players before you're looking to someone like James Forrest. And again, it's nothing against James. He deserved his place and was phenomenal in that last stretch, but might not have had that chance if there was someone like Haksabanovic there.
So that's the positive. We got to see James Forrest return to his brilliant best. Maybe we wouldn't have seen that otherwise. Just finally, Haksabanovic, Maestro saying he's an impact player at best. Plunge saying he's better than Yang and Kuhn. I think that's an interesting debate. Certainly, I think he's shown more than Yang, but maybe not for today. A lot of chat about Celtic sleeping at the wheel, guys. We'll maybe return to that. Just on the fixtures, that's what we've got. Ryan, talk us through them.
Yeah, it's an interesting first 5 games, but it's tasty at the same time. Hibs, I think, will be revitalised under David Gray, Sir David Gray, in those parts. That's an interesting second game at Easter Road, St Mirren away. European football for St Mirren under Robinson, so that'll be interesting. Then that double header, Rangers and Hearts, that's appetising. Very, very appetising. 2 home games in a row against Rangers and then Hearts. Looking forward to those 2 games in particular. But you've got to play all these teams, and I said this at the start of the podcast, you've got to play all these teams at some point of the season, and it might suit other teams with the way that their fixtures are going, but they'll have to then play games like this later on in the season, and then the fixture list might be more kind to Celtic. No excuses. Celtic have a good squad. They should strengthen in the coming days, weeks and months, and they should be ready for this new season and whatever lies ahead of them.
Sorry, just to put that back up. I mean, it's interesting. The thing that I noticed when you look at those first 5 fixtures, you've got 4 of the other 4 top 6 teams from last season, plus Hibs, who you never know what you're going to get with Hibs, but you think maybe they'll be decent this season. To be honest, I don't know, but Kilmarnock had a really good season. St Mirren, obviously in Europe, Rangers and Hearts in Europe as well. So it's challenging. It's challenging that, but equally, I think it's challenging, but it's an opportunity for the team to lay down a bit of a marker. If you win your first 5 there, Joe, you're looking at being already in a very strong position, and I think winning our first 5 there should be the target.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not unfeasible to be coming away with 15 there. I think Kilmarnock's an interesting one to start with because Derek McInnes did a phenomenal job last year and was obviously acknowledged for that. But it's no secret that our best game last year was at Rugby Park, probably, in terms of the football, in terms of the conviction, in terms of everything coming together at the right time to dispel any external narratives, etc., etc. It was brilliant. It was the best football, I think, that we saw under Brendan Rodgers this time, and it's got to be up there with the best football that he's had across his 2 tenures. It was just so spot on. Everything came together really well. To then bring Kilmarnock to Celtic Park, if we can replicate anywhere near that form, and starters mean to go on. Hibs is a funny one, just generally. Easter Road is kind of hit and miss sometimes. We've went there and played really well, especially under Brendan Rodgers, but there has been some poorer results. But yeah, I think looking at the latter end, Rangers and Hearts are games that, especially at Celtic Park, we're always up for. I don't have any doubts at this point. But yeah, I mean, it's got to be. It's the same as the Champions League or anything that any approach to our competitions. We're never there to make up the numbers, especially not in the league. And for those first games, I'd be looking for maximum points. Why not? If anything else happens in between, you deal with it as it comes. But there's every assurance that I think we should.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just taking a question there because it was chatting about if there's an international break between the Rangers and Hearts games. I believe there is.
I think there's 2 weeks in between those 2 games.
Because there is a gap between 2 of the other games, but I believe that's the League Cup second round, which is, I'm looking at it, set for 17th of August. So yeah, there's kind of lots going on in the early part of the season. Obviously, the big one people are looking at as well is the first derby. We knew it would be at Celtic Park. Match day 4's, from my memory, as early as they ever go with the first derby. I can't ever remember it being earlier than match day 4. So you're August, although that may be moved. It's down for a 3 o'clock kickoff at the moment, but it may be moved. Well, will be moved to a lunchtime kickoff. Anything else kind of stand out later in the season? I mean, you've got Aberdeen coming to Celtic Park. Just looking at our home games, so it's like Killie, Rangers, Hearts, Aberdeen, Dundee United, and Ross County. So obviously you then have them away in the second round. So there's some kind of big games at Celtic Park early on in the season with Aberdeen, Rangers, and Hearts all coming, Ryan.
Yeah, and that's exciting. I think the league, in terms of names now, squads can mean a totally different thing, but in terms of names, you look at Dundee United, Aberdeen, Hearts, Hibs, Rangers, all of these teams, it's such a strong league in terms of names and standing. Even the two Dundee sides, I think, are they playing against each other in the very first round of fixtures?
Yes.
So that's an exciting one. I'm sure that'll be on TV. I actually read somewhere that there was 4 games on the TV. That's absolutely
4 games.
brilliant.
So there's I think Saturday lunchtime is Hearts v Rangers, and then there's a double header on Sunday. We're the second game of that. The first game's a Dundee derby, so that's a pretty good kind of Sunday. And then, as I say, I think it's Aberdeen St Johnstone or St Johnstone Aberdeen on the Monday night, all live in Sky. I also saw Premier Sports have announced their first game, which is in the second week. I think it's Dundee Hearts, and it's a Saturday 5:15 or 5:30 kickoff. So I wonder if that's going to be their spot going forwards, and I wonder if we're going to have a 5:15 game virtually, certainly more weekends than not.
It's a great sight to see more games on the TV. It's better to have more games on the TV than not, although it is good to see spectators go into games too.
As long as having that time.
Yeah, I mean 5:15, that's absolutely brilliant. Another game, and I think even Celtic supporters will want to tune into these games to see competitors in the league and to watch more Scottish football. I think having more of it available, I know it's another subscription service that you need to get, but a lot of the people have that subscription service because of the Scotland games, because of the League Cup and the Scottish Cup as well. So you're getting more value for your money in that regard, which is good too. I just like the more games the better, and the more eyes that are on Scottish football the better too. So yeah, I'm excited to see how that works out, and it's good to have two channels rather than just the single monopoly of Sky. Good to have Premier Sports there as well. I like the BT Sports and Sky partnership and ESPN before that, Setanta before that. I like having the two. So yeah, that's great to see the Scottish games get two suppliers basically.
Anything that stands out for you, Joe, looking down? Someone there in the comments was saying we've got a midweek game at Aberdeen, a Wednesday night on December the 4th. Always enjoy a kind of night trip up there.
Yeah, December's always a really busy one. I mean, the Derby one is always interesting, but of course with the fans back in, remind me of the allocation again for this season.
5%. So we'll get 2,500 at Ibrox. They'll get 3,000 at Celtic Park. Which
will be, I mean, it's been so long since anything above 700, hasn't it? That's going back to 2017-18, is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. Which will change the complexion of that game. I still always fancy, the home side in terms of the deficit, but it was why I just thought Celtic's record last year was so remarkable that to go to Ibrox with 0 fans. And I've mentioned this before, a number of years ago when I was in club media at Celtic, even with the 700, I was never at a game at Ibrox where there was no Celtic fans, but I was there when there was 700. Celtic actually got beaten 2-0. So the Celtic fans had little to sing about, and obviously the home fans did. But even being media in the main stand, you couldn't hear the Celtic fans even when they were singing, just drowned out. So I always thought for the players to perform under that pressure, I know they say they drown it out and stuff, but it must be so difficult. So last year's performances were incredible, especially that one back in September, the 1-0. But to have fans back in, to be making noise, and it'll change the whole face of it. I think it's easy to look through green tinted glasses, but I think it'll inspire us, obviously at Celtic Park, sing that little bit louder. But that's exciting, isn't it?
I think it's going to be great, and people have their own thoughts on it, and everyone's entitled to their own opinion. But I'm already kind of looking forward to seeing that first derby, and I think there's going to be a real buzz about the place. And I think 5% away supports, in a weird way, it might be the right number for right now, because I think you'll hear them, you'll see them. Well, you'll see us at Ibrox. You won't see them at Celtic Park because they're right in the corner, just how we like them. But you'll certainly see and hear us at Ibrox, and I think personally the games will be better for it. I was just kind of looking to see Champions League dates as well, but I'm not aware enough to be able to do this off the cuff. But I was trying to work out who would play after certain Champions League games. Yeah, kind of complicated, but we can look forward to that as well. And the season will just fill up, and we'll have 8 European games to look forward to, and all of these wonderful things as well. Are you a bit like me that you're quite excited about the new season? I just feel like I touched on them yesterday. There's a few reasons why this new season is going to be good, and hopefully Celtic can just match that excitement by strengthening the squad as well, Ryan.
Yeah, I'm really excited for the new season, but I just want to see that strengthening of the squad happening sooner rather than later. It seems like every day I'm saying, where's this new goalkeeper? Where's the new left back? Where's the new centre back? Now they've got a target. It's 38 days until the start of the season. They need to make sure that all of those, or most of those positions, are strengthened by the time that they face off against Kilmarnock in the first game of the season. It's, as I said before, it's going to be a busy season. You know, you've got 8 Champions League games, you've got 2 Champions League games after Christmas as well. So that sort of disproves that whole European football after Christmas sort of ask, because it automatically will be there with those 2 games.
We'll still find a way. We'll still find a way to make to.
I don't know, European football after Valentine's Day or something like that. I don't know what they'll go for. But yeah, I just want the football back. To be honest, it's great. This is good downtime at the moment, but you've just got to enjoy this because you know it's going to be full throttle by the time August comes around. You look at that schedule, you'll have midweek games. You have midweek games domestically as well as games in the Champions League. Then you'll have the League Cup to navigate to. There's going to be so many games to talk about and so many talking points too. I think there's so many storylines that will go with this season with existing players and new players coming to the club too. So I'm really excited about what's to come. It's going to be a really exciting season. I think this is the sort of season that Brendan Rodgers would have been excited to come back to Celtic for. He's going to have so many games to navigate and show why he is the elite level manager. He'll be buzzing to be in that Champions League proper in the Swiss model.
Towards the end of last season, didn't he? About is he looking forward to kind of restoring some of the good faith? And he said that's him back to zero, as if he had, he was in negative numbers before to get everybody back on side. I'm exactly the same in terms of bringing players, and I think generally the fan base, certainly the kind of vocal side of it, have been patient up until now. I've not really seen anyone. There's that frustration where you want to see people coming in through the door, but everyone's been quite calm. Assuming that we're doing due diligence behind the scenes and working to get these signings, especially positions that we need to replace, not least the goalkeeper, as you mentioned, Ryan. But I think if you look at it, without trying to be too overly profound about it, if you look at the kind of broader spectrum, the manager, he spoke a lot about that external narratives last year, and whilst it's always about focusing on Celtic and not paying too much mind, it clearly got to him because you could tell that he was quite frustrated. They felt like he'd overcome a lot of that when Celtic clinched the double last year. If we think about painting narratives or unwanted narratives, I'm not saying anyone's dragging their heels behind the scenes, but getting those players in now when we're starting to get a little bit antsy would certainly help to dispel any narratives before we even started the campaign. I would just love, we've spoken about this on this pod, certainly the times I've been here, and I know you guys have been when I've not. You don't want to rush a big signing like a goalkeeper. It's a really important one, but equally it would settle everyone down, wouldn't it? Just getting that because Joe Hart leaves such a big gap in the squad that having someone in who can immediately link up with the captain, get involved in the dressing room, he's going to have that relationship with Carter Vickers and whoever lines up alongside him, and it would help really settle us and just kind of go, right, that one's sorted, now we can look at the rest of the pitch.
I agree totally. I think it's about setting the tone nice and early. And I think, you look at last season and that it's well documented the first kind of 6 months, if not longer, was a challenging period, and Rodgers has touched on some of it. But I do think that the whole summer transfer window was a huge part of all that. I think if we'd had a more successful window, I think some of the other stuff would have been easier to kind of overcome. And let's face it, the team would probably have won the league a lot more comfortably. I just felt like that summer window set the tone because we had such high expectations this time last year when Rodgers came back. We're going to push on now. And it didn't happen. It didn't happen at all. We went backwards. And obviously it was a big well done to Rodgers and the players who were already at the club, plus probably Adam Ida, maybe Bernardo, that we managed to win a double. And it was a huge achievement. But I just think if you want a really kind of strong start to the season this year, which I think we need, keep the mood high, get players in and really kind of get the support going nice and early. We don't want to rush it, but equally, like, when did Joe Hart announce he was leaving the club? I mean, we've had months to get the right player in that position. I think the goalkeeper for me is the big one right now. Get the goalkeeper in and then you can build from there, and there's a hell of a lot of work needing done there. It is still early days, the team, we've still got over a month until our first competitive game, so there is still time there, but I think equally you want a signing made pretty soon, at least one signing, just to kind of get everyone going again, because I think that's a really important thing.
Yeah, they've already announced that. The first time they've used that sort of graphic of a signing is with Haksabanovic going, which I think everybody expected him to go. And I would expect more players to go maybe in the next couple of days. Gets announced at Genk. If that improved offer has been accepted by the club, then that's something. And then I would want Celtic to start really focusing on bringing in some players rather than letting them go. These players maybe would not have made an impact next season. Was third choice when Adam Ida was at the club. He hardly really got a chance from the start when he was second choice striker. So these are ones that you would expect. Haksabanovic was out on loan. So it's all about improving that existing squad, getting rid of maybe some more of the deadwood or players that aren't going to make a big impact next season. But it's all about strengthening what you've got. It's good to have those experienced pros that got Celtic through the difficult moments of last season, but they now need to strengthen. And if they can find projects that can instantly improve the team, then I'm all for that. But I would want them to bring in players that are first and foremost going to improve what Celtic have got in their starting lineup at the moment. You've got to replace in some areas, you've got to improve in others. I just want them. I just want the recruitment to be good. But again, I go back to the point that Celtic still don't have a head of recruitment, and it's 38 days until the league opener. I thought that would have already been done by now. They knew in March that Mark Lawwell and Joe Dudgeon, the chief scout, were going to be leaving the club. As we know, or as far as we know, there is no replacement at this point in time. So in that case, who is looking at the recruitment? Is it Brendan Rodgers? Is it somebody else that's taking charge? These are all questions that need to be answered, and they need to be answered fairly quickly, because that 38 days will suddenly become 30 days, and then 20 days, and then 10 days, and then all of a sudden the league is right there, and you're hoping that Celtic are stronger at the start of this season than they were at the end of last.
Yeah, I think you're right in saying that this will approach quickly. The thing is, I guess, in recent seasons, Joe, when you look at it, like we've maybe not had a great deal happening, and then you've seen a report, and then 2 or 3 days later the player has been signed. So we have tended to sign players efficiently once you actually hear of the report. So it could be like it's not inconceivable that we hear something today, tomorrow, and then we've got a new signing announced early next week. I know people might be laughing at that, but it is possible, no?
Yeah, and I think a lot of this discussion comes down to just what you were saying, Hamish, about kind of settling things down, and it probably is quite selfish in some regards of us, and I count myself in this wholeheartedly. Like, I'd love a ready-to-go goalkeeper with a mature head that can just come in and get things settled. And it's a personal, it's a selfish thing. I just want to be thinking, right, that's handled now. We can take our time elsewhere. But at this point, you'd really have to have faith in behind the scenes, because otherwise, are you just getting yourself stressed out this early in the campaign? What I think is interesting in terms of when Brendan Rodgers came back, and he spoke about the C and May stuff was well documented, and luckily that they got us over the line at the end, and it was a real celebration towards the end of the season. But he spoke about tangible growth in Europe. What does that look like for Celtic, especially with this new Champions League format? I've been fortunate enough to have had my ticket at Celtic Park since the very start of their contributions in Champions League at the turn of the millennium, and for long enough, it was anytime Celtic can get a result, it's brilliant. But I was buzzing when we got Real Madrid a couple of years ago because I'd never seen Real Madrid in the flesh. But the longer it goes on, the more you think, well, it's great having these flagship games, these marquee games, the high profile ones. But equally, what is progression for us? Surely it's not just being there playing these big teams. You can't progress without bringing players in. So, Brendan Rodgers saying that and saying he's got a plan, that he's come back to the club. He knows the structure. He knows any potential teething issues or issues behind the scenes in terms of bringing in the players he wants. He was well aware of that when he stepped back in. He was clearly given assurances you would have to assume, otherwise he wouldn't come back. So, yeah, in terms of progression in Europe, that's a big one in terms of who we might be looking for. My worry is that, Celtic's place in world football now, I'll be chasing players that realistically, if someone else comes in with a bigger offer and a bigger wage, are we going to be linked with these players right up until we no longer are? And that was one of the things that the last manager clearly had advantages in terms of tapping into a talent pool that really he only could in terms of the Japanese league. But I suppose it's all speculation at this point, isn't it?
It is. I mean, I think we've spoken before about Celtic being, for me, a very, enticing prospect for players at the moment. Just look at the end of last season and the fan base and the backing you get in every single game. I mean, I know that's always been the case with Celtic, but I think right now, like the support is as strong as I can remember it for probably 15, 20 years in terms of like every game basically sells out. It's pretty much impossible to get away tickets unless you've been going for years, and that's before we even come to the European stuff. And we've got more European stuff next season than we have ever before, really, guaranteed wise. So I think there's a lot to be excited about. For me, it's just about Celtic spending the money and matching the ambition of the support. We don't ask for a lot as fans. We put a hell of a lot into the club, and all we really ask is that the club show ambition and try to make progress in Europe. And I think if we progress in Europe, the domestic stuff will take care of itself. I mean, we'd all love to win a treble. I think, if we managed to win a double this year and did well in Europe, got to the knockout rounds of the Champions League, that would probably be a more memorable season than last year. So for me, match the ambition of the support, get quality players in, the obvious positions. They're obvious to all of us, so they'll be obvious to Brendan Rodgers. And I don't think we were a million miles away in the Champions League last year. We competed in 5 of the 6 games, could have got results in maybe 3 or 4 of those. So that's what's required, Ryan.
Absolutely. If any season they've got to be ambitious, it's this one with the revamped Champions League format. All they've got to do is not be one of the worst teams in the Champions League and be competitive and win some games to be in that playoff spot, to have those extra 2 games after January, after February time, or round about that. I don't know exactly when those games would be played, but that's where Celtic need to be. They need to be middle of the pack where they're playing against another team in order to get through to that last 16. It's a melting pot of teams, and you want Celtic to be in there. In order to do that, Celtic have got to be ambitious, and they've got to really push the boat out this summer. I'm hoping that they do. They've not done so far. 27th of June, no signings yet. You're hoping it's a much busier July than it has been June, because there's been nothing happening. In fact, if it's bringing one player in July, it'd be more busier than June, because you get 100% more of the transfers. But if there's one season, as I said, to be ambitious, it's this one. New competition, new way for Celtic to make a mark, a fresh chance to make Celtic Park a fortress once again on the Champions League stage, on the European stage. They've got to go and they've got to go and spend. Basically, they've got money in the bank. We know that they've got money in the bank because they're because they're a PLC, and they report that they're significantly well off in their financial earnings of last year. So why not reinvest some of that, speculate to accumulate, and make the squad stronger on the pitch? They're in a healthy position off of it. They could be if they strengthen on the pitch, and I'm just hoping that will be the case in the coming weeks and months.
I'll give you a
Fingers
hypothetical,
crossed.
guys, just because we can. Sorry, Hamish. Success next year, would you forfeit? I mean, obviously, a really successful league or season rather, as a domestic treble. Would you forfeit that for the league and progression to the knockouts in the Champions League?
See, I love winning trophies, Joe. I really enjoy that. But I also,
I think if you do well in Europe, then you'll have the better players, and you'll do well in
question.
The domestic league too.
Yeah. So obviously, as we say, the league is always winning. The league's always the most important thing. I'm just fed up of us not getting results in Europe. I'm so fed up of it. And it needs to change, because Celtic have always been strong in Europe. Up until maybe the last 10 years or so. And it's been really, really disappointing. We need to get that back. And I actually think it'll be interesting to see how this new format plays out. I actually think, in a weird way, I don't know, we might be a little freer, just given that we're not in a kind of group and looking for other teams to get results. We might just look at it and go, let's just see what happens here in a strange way. Because you've got 2 extra matches and they're against pot 4 teams. So in theory, they should be matches that we can try and win. So I think this might benefit us slightly, but we'll wait and see.
So they're like almost Europa League games for Celtic in that pot 4. I know that the pot 4 teams, some of them will be really, really strong given the coefficient, but they're games that Celtic should be more competitive in. The only downside, I think, of the competition is that the way that the group stage format goes, there'll still be teams that will be wanting to win games, even though it's like match day 7, match day 8, because it's a league table, because they'll want to get as high as they can. Previously in group stage matches, there would maybe be teams that have already qualified. They might play a weakened team. I don't think you'll see that in this. I think it'll be very, very rare, if ever, to see that happening. So you're going to get teams that are on their A game, and that should present another opportunity, or give another reason as to why Celtic should strengthen, because they're going to be coming up against European giants at their very best, and they've got to be prepared for that.
Yeah, I'm just while you're talking, looking at there's 2 teams confirmed so far for pot 4, and they're Sturm Graz and Brest. And I'm a bit surprised both of them are actually in the Champions League. But, obviously there'll probably be better teams join them in there. I mean, ourselves, Monaco, Villa, Bologna, Girona, Stuttgart, they could all be pot 4 teams. And obviously some of them are a lot trickier. But, those ideally should be games that Celtic can if we can go and take maybe 4 points from the pot 4 teams, you might only need another 4 points from your other 6 matches to finish in that kind of top 24. That certainly has to be the goal for us. Right, okay, we all happy? Anything else you guys want to get off your chest?
I think we've got everything. I think just looking forward to the new season, and looking forward to getting into it and getting stuck into it, and actually seeing these fixtures play out. Good to see them on paper, but it'll be even better to see them in person.
Yeah, the fixtures are out, everyone, in case you've kind of missed that, you just tuned in or whatever. The fixtures are out. Check them out. We spoke about them a little bit at the start. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well as we continue to go forward. Thank you for watching. Back for the final video of the week tomorrow. Speak to you then.